Dear Mrs. Lave, Her Excellency is in absentia, so she's not here. Hosts of guests here, very distinguished Bharti Dayalji, National Award winner. So many artists from Indonesia, so many artists from Mithila. It's a great honor and also a moment of great discomfort to be doing a keynote address on socialpreneurship. Most of my life, most of my career has been in hardcore commercial software, IT, ITES. So when I was asked to do this presentation, I was wondering what made the organizers look at me to do a keynote on socialpreneurship. Perhaps in the last 5 years, I've been focusing a lot on Mithila region through our Mithila Angel Network, which aspires to build up capacity in a very impoverished region for jobs, for IT, ITES capabilities. We are setting up a student incubator in Darbhanga. We are trying to do a little marketing campaign for women entrepreneurs, especially handicrafts, arts, the kinds of things that Terasmita has tried since 2011, for example. Maybe that has been viewed as a sufficient enough proof that I have credibility to talk about social entrepreneurship. So thank you very much for the organizers for involving me. The declaration at the recently concluded G20 has very strongly reiterated G20 commitment to sustainable future. I saw multiple references to empowering women, entrepreneurs, artisans, artists, craftspeople, and to build platforms to promote women entrepreneurship, business growth, employment opportunities in all sectors of the economy through vocational education, capacity building, mentoring, access to concessional financing programs. Ma'am, you talked about the challenges that Terasmita faced on marketing side because of lack of capital, for example. The G20 talks about Women Entrepreneur Finance Initiative. They call it WEFI, WEFI, WEFI. Okay, and there is a clear, unambiguous call to promote women's financial inclusion by integrating women, particularly women entrepreneurs and MSMEs, owned and led by women, into the formal financial system, and by strengthening their access to low-cost, convenient, need-based, sustainable finance through digital finance and other tailored financial services such as microfinance. All this resonates very strongly with me given my own involvement with rural artisans, artists, craftspeople, weavers, sculptors, painters, through a very small investment I had made in a startup, which was aptly called worldartcommunity.com. This community has almost 10,000 artisans and artists and craftspeople from India onto a platform very similar to the Terasmita platform that you talked about. And it tries to promote the consumption of sustainable art products from all over India and perhaps some Nepal and Bhutan as well, to the Indian consumer sector through an e-commerce platform. It made a very strong contribution during the COVID times because for many of these artists, this online platform was the only channel of having some income. Because there was national lockdown, there was travel lockdowns, there was no local fairs. Most of these artisans are selling because of local fairs and festivals and government initiatives. And when that stopped, they had a very, very challenging problem. But in spite of having 10,000 producers and probably 30,000, 40,000 consumers on the platform, we are seeing the same kind of challenges, Ma'am Lave, that you mentioned for Terasmita. There is a lack of capital challenge, there is a lack of discovery challenge, there's a lack of marketing, capacity building. There's also, although India now has a very, very strong technical payment gateway infrastructure that accelerates transactions quite a bit, there's still challenges on the logistics part in terms of pickup and delivery from anywhere to anywhere. So that was my first experience of socialpreneurship because of World Art Community. And the World Art Community founders were not only focused on profit, they were focused on the quality of life and doing something to improve the life of these artisans and traditional artists, to preserve the art and to promote the art and to preserve all the knowledge, the traditions that you are now talking about. As I started to work with these founders to solve some of these problems, especially on the digital marketing side, since I come from the technology background, we understood that there is a cost of doing marketing and the cost of acquiring a customer. And almost all these rural artisans face this challenge of acquiring a customer. Their influence zone is a very small local zone wherein geographically located they are. But the overall market is a very big market all across India and perhaps even the globe. And it needs a little bit of government intervention, needs a little bit of support, needs a little bit of hand-holding to set up platforms that will facilitate discovery of the art products, the art traditions, the knowledge traditions, and the ease of transaction has to be improved before we can really drive. And I started to think about new technologies that are now emerging, like AI is emerging, machine language is emerging. A lot of data is now available, a lot of data science is now available, and how we can use a lot of these technologies to help discover these platforms. Just like you are doing these forums of engagement on Thursdays and Saturdays through Instagram and YouTube. You could also do a live streaming. E-commerce live streaming is very, very popular in China. We are seeing that. And I think e-commerce live streaming of these art and art products could be a very new way to promote some of these products. On the other hand, at Mithila Angel Network, we are dealing with another dimension of a community challenge as a sociopreneur. And this challenge is about massive migration of talent from that region. There are no jobs, there are no employers, there's no manufacturing. So pretty much all the youth people are migrating out of that region. And we are trying to take people back into that region through capacity building, through skill building on IT side, on ITES side, through digital marketing side. There is a movement. You can see that NASCOM has done a report recently saying all of IT and ITES should start moving to tier 2, tier 3 towns. The tier 1 towns are getting very congested, very costly. It's becoming very hard. And now the digital experiences are all over. During my travels to the region, I find that most of the youth people, their education levels may be very low, but their skill sets on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or any of the digital platforms is very, very high. That tells me that if you can introduce capacity building programs and training programs, which will teach them how they can channelize their energies, how they can channelize their talent for digital into more traditional marketing, sales, support, customer support, and more IT-enabled services, I think their distraction from just consuming content will go away, and more productive content creation or more productive efforts on digital can be brought in. There was an exhibition that we had organized at one of the startup incubators, and 30 plus women entrepreneurs had participated. They were making all kinds of fabrics and lac products and secret products and metalware and craftsware, and most of them were struggling with marketing and branding and discovery and packaging. Okay, so now with digital technologies, if you can start building communities of experts from the tier 1 towns who are willing to mentor, just like you have this forum, mentor these rural artisans into how to do discovery better, how to do packaging better, how to do shipment easily, then I think we can start to make a huge impact on the lives of some of these rural enterprises. So you can see the challenges in both India and in what we have experienced, and Teresmita and what Indonesia has experienced seem to be very similar, in some cases. And I think that this is a very timely moment, as my ambassador has said, where we can start talking about what can we do together to start to address this problem. We do have a very long tradition of shared culture. Professor Gautam talked about the Ramayana and Mahabharata influence on the artisans and artwork created by Indonesian artists, and he talked about a $50 million revenue that woodwork itself is generating out of that, or puppetry is generating, or textiles is generating. I think we've seen a dominant, artisan products coming out of Indonesia. I know that a lot of the Indonesian woodwork is getting imported by upper middle class rich people here for their living rooms and drawing rooms, even for business decorations. So that setup is already there. I think we can start working on a joint space, a joint space where both Indonesia and India aspire to have a more soft power. The soft power is the cultural power, the power of knowledge, the power of, and digital can play a huge role in building up that soft power by making sure that your knowledge systems, your art forms can be taken to the rest of the world. India has a huge respect right now in terms of technological progress, in terms of the IT capacity building that we have, and maybe we can use some of that Indian knowledge system on IT side, some of the new technologies that we've done on the payment gateway side, on the cashless transaction side, and build up new portals which can be focused on India and Indonesia together, and create this catalog of products from both places, and then open to the market. In Asia, India and Indonesia have a very large market size. Your demographic size gives you a big advantage on that side. You're also very, very mobile friendly. The mobile penetration is very deep inside. So I think there is a very strong opportunity to do some kind of collaborative work where we can work together and make sure that the products across both the countries are discovered better. We are seeing now this age of platform unbundling. When we had just, let's say, Amazon, then Amazon was the super shop of the world. But now we are seeing small vendors on Shopify. We are seeing millions of new vendors on Shopify. So there's new tendency now to say, look, can we create 10,000 or 100,000 producers from India and Indonesia onto a single platform, which is more of an Indic platform, which talks about the shared heritage of our own Indic belt, for example, and then go to the market. And there is a huge appetite right now in India for any Ramayana related products. Can we create the fulfillment for that kind of opportunity? I think if we can build that, then both nations can benefit. The people of both nations can benefit. The artists of both nations can benefit. And remember, most of the artist work that we do is extremely sustainable in its own lifespan. It's all built with natural fibers. Today, ma'am has talked about Terasmita's work with natural, and outside on the Mithila side, you'll see a lot of natural colors or natural dyes being used. So my call would be to build a shared platform where we can bring in capital, we can bring in entrepreneurs, we can bring in social entrepreneurs, we can bring in service providers, logistics providers, regulators, and we can discover the strength of both these countries together, and then reduce the friction of transactions, reduce the frictions of logistics as far as we can cross-border logistics, and make sure that products across both the countries can be freely used by the people of those countries. If we can achieve this growth in consumption of handmade artisan products, we'll have done a great service to G20's agenda on SDG, and given the dominance of women artists in both countries in these sectors, also done a bit for women's economic development through sustainable commerce. Let's bring the slogan of One Earth, One Family, One Future to real life. Thank you.